All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another one of these episode series that we're doing here on coronavirus and how to manage anxiety and fear. Um, Today, we're going to be having a beginning conversation. I guess we're going to do a couple parts on this about how to have the conversations with your kids surrounding this coronavirus crisis. And so, just to begin, I want to say that I have four boys ranging from 15 to 5, 15, 12, 5, I can't remember their ages now, 9 and 5. And then Carlos has five kids as well, ranging from 16 to 6, right?
Six.
Yep.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what you said.
Yep. See, I remember. So, so between the two of us, there are 9 kids. Yeah. Which means that we can't get our families together because that's over 10 at this point. So, sorry.
I was actually
Little
hoping
jokes.
I told my kids one more reduction and we're gonna have to split the family. Because my dad were 8 actually. So
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Carlos, you had some great ideas for us today. Why don't you go ahead and get us started?
sure. So the thing is this, and it's funny because I think my kids will be watching now. So let my but the question is, how do you talk to kids about the coronavirus and the how to? There's a lot of pragmatic things that we can cover later on,
Mm-hmm.
but we have to remember ultimately who we are. One of the things as Catholic, I tell my kids, my job is to try my best to mirror God the Father until they can see who God the Father is for them.
Right.
But in my own experience, I'm also a child. In my own experience, this is a struggle. I mean, there's no way around the reality that things are not the same as they were, you know, even 2 weeks ago,
Right.
a week and a half ago. So going back to the reality, so there's 3 points. Kind of want to touch is it's first thing is that self-examine and check-in, and I think it's very important for us as parents, as friends, to check in with each other. How am I doing? How are you doing?
Right.
That's crucial because whatever's not going well there is going to be communicated. You know, and particularly if you have kids who are teenagers, adolescents, preteens, the world revolves around them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, God, if you're having a bad morning for whatever reason, I mean, I'm going to be kind of, earthy, you're constipated. The question is, what did I do or what's happening? Why is mom or dad acting the way they are? So it's really important for us to be aware of where we are. Second point we're going to touch upon is how to acknowledge what's going on. A couple points about that. And the third thing is the actions. The fact that we talk about preparation, but really now it's time for action. Mm-hmm. So touching on the self-examine, I'm taking this from medical book, but it's a crisis occurs when a person is confronted with a critical incident or stressful event that can be overwhelming despite the ways that we cope in the past.
Right.
So hopefully as this continues, we come to realize that most of us are very well equipped to manage what's going on right now. But everything is not the same.
Right.
And so the reality is a question we have to ask ourselves is, how am I doing? And if you talk to other generations, you might be told your job is to look strong, to be a rock at all times, to make them know that no matter what's happening, you're going to be the Clint Eastwood or the, I don't know, what's his name? In the movie The Rock.
Wait, you talking about just like
Actors.
Sean Connery?
I would love to be Sean
John
Connery.
Wayne, yeah. The
Or
face of all
John
this.
Wayne, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But the reality is that, I tell my kids a lot of times, Mario, I don't know about you, but your kids, like I can tell when my kids are lying or they're not doing well or they're happy.
Right.
They can hide it. I'm like, look, I've known you since before you remember yourself. I can tell the way your nose twitches when you're not telling the truth, And it's funny because you can see it in them and they don't see it themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, here's bad news. They also are experts on us.
That's true.
And I can, oh no, everything's fine. I'm cool. I'm chill. And my pupils are dilating. I'm hyperventilating. I'm having all those things of fear. And they can tell.
They can.
And so, Mario, what has been your experience with the way your children are experiencing you right now in this?
Yeah, so we've had pretty much a daily check-in every night at the dinner table. One of the, I hate to say it, but the blessings in this is that it's obliterated all the evening activities. And so we're back on having a meal together every night. And so we've been able to kind of check in at the dinner table, kind of give some updates on things and just kind of see how everybody's doing. And yeah, I mean, we're not hiding necessarily our fear in how we're experiencing this. and we see it in our kids, and we want to give them the space to be able to talk. And we want to be able to answer whatever questions that they have as well. So I'm in agreement with you. Now, I'll say also for our own self-care, how to take care of ourselves. Like, I know I need sleep, and I know I need to maintain some type of routine. So I still got up this morning at 6:30. I went on a 3-mile run. I couldn't go any further, really. I was just because I didn't have the time. I was running really slow. My body is still honestly feeling the effects of all the anxiety of the last few days. And so I'm not.
The marathon you ran 3 weeks ago.
It's been over a month now. It's been 5 weeks. 5 weeks since I ran the marathon. We're past the recovery stage. I'm detraining at this point, but that's okay. But I know I needed it, and I feel better today. I've limited checking the news. I haven't kept up with things, to be honest. But that's okay. That's okay. So yeah, we have these conversations with our kids, and we have to manage our own experiences as well, which I think is absolutely really important.
But Mario, you bring an excellent point, and it's funny because before we started, we had some parameters on time. But one of the things to folks is if you only have 10 minutes, you can cut off in 10 minutes, come back later.
Yeah.
We're going to dive into these areas. And our hope really is to make a point of what we're doing is the question is how can we give back to the community? This is hoping that this is useful. So please send questions, send comments. If there's anything we can be helpful with this. But one of the things is also your own self-care. And so sometimes it's not easy for parents to say this, for mom to say, look, I told my kids last night, guys, it's 9:30. And if you want me to be healthy and ready to work tomorrow, I have to go to bed. So this night needs to end. Just because we don't have typical activities tomorrow, like kids are homeschooled, this school will happen tomorrow. And we have to keep this because part of the routine is for the parents to be able to take care of yourselves, and it is crucial. Kids need to understand that mom and dad, just like mom and dad have their own concerns, fears, they also need to rest,
Right.
And we need to be prepared to think clearly. So the thing is, that's one of my funniest clips, and I like movie clips. I wish I could play them. It's the movie Cheaper by the Dozen. By the way, humor. In my house, is that the check-ins is also what's something funny happened today? What's a good thing happened today?
Right.
Check-ins is not, we want to focus, the experts would say, at least 3 times more on positive things than on negative things in anything we do. So some of the things in my house that happened this morning, I would not tell you about, but there was a lot of humor going on. And Dad was having a good time, and scandalizing my house, as I do often. But anyway, but one of the things is having that humor, having the special time, because this is a gift. In a way, it's a gift for us as parents, to have our children. And if we're struggling with our children, so parents are really freaking out, you're going to realize that you can't be with your kids.
Right.
Not on vacation for 1 or 2 weeks if you have the blessing of working from home, and we will be better because of it. But in the movie Cheaper by the Dozen, the parents are trying to talk really quietly about possibly moving. And there's a great clip, if you've ever seen it, where the kid falls down the laundry chute screaming, "We're moving!" Listen, my house is amazing. My wife and I need to talk about something quiet. If we want anybody to hear it, so in a house with 5 kids is very loud. If her and I start whispering, everybody hears everything we say over if we speak loudly.
Right.
But the other thing, and the final thing is asking for grace. When I talk a little bit about grace and how we can ask our own self-care spiritually as we face these difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Before we start diving into the nitty-gritty of it.
So whenever you set the time to have this conversation with your kids, and it's going to be a series of conversations, you're going to have to acknowledge it's just going to be evolving. The first thing is obviously just praying for the grace to manage it, praying for the grace to be able to hear what the Lord is asking of you in this time, and then being attentive to what your kids need. So when it's any hard conversation, you're talking about sex, money, death, anything, coronavirus, the first thing obviously is to pray, because God loves your kids more than you do, and God knows what's on their hearts more than you do, and we want to be able to tap into that. So where do we begin, Carlos?
Okay, so let's talk about the acknowledgement, the actual things we want to be looking at. It's important for us to acknowledge what is obvious, right? So rather than start talking about the things that we don't have control over, the things that we don't know, let's start with what is known. And many times,
and I do need to. I'm sorry, Carlos. I just need to say I apologize to the viewers. Your audio is coming in fine, but the video is breaking up on and I'm not sure if it's we're having connection issues on my side or your side. I'm not sure, but your audio is fine, but the video keeps freezing. So just to let you know.
Clip. I'm stuck in right now. Okay. Well, sorry. But the first question, and it might be because I opened up my Facebook here. I'm gonna close it up here. It might be okay. So the first thing that we need to acknowledge is the obvious. Many times in counseling, we're taught to join the client or to begin to enter into their world. So the reality is, what's their experience like? If your kids are in regular school, like most kids are, they're not home.
Right.
And in many schools, unfortunately, the execution is the best that could be done with very little planning, which is a nice way of saying not very good.
Right.
So the schools are trying to figure out how to do this. And funny enough, kids who are homeschooling, people are like, well, these guys are homeschooling. Well, homeschoolers have it really hard also, because as I joke around, it's like, imagine being stuck in your classroom for 14 days, because homeschool kids, they homeschool because they do activities outside. They're used to being outside that. I mean, it comes 3 o'clock, I don't see my kids. They're all over town doing stuff. So the reinforcement of homeschooling is not there either. So the acknowledgements, things are not the same. And the reality is that whether there's only you and your child or there's a larger family like ours, we're all colliding in each other's worlds a lot more than usual.
Right. Yeah. So let me stop you right there and just say, from our experience, it's that. I mean, I'm here at the office today. Nobody's really here, but I probably will be going home and working at home for really the duration of the time. And we're in each other's space right now. And we talked about this last night. It was one of the things that we discussed was, all right, guys, things are going to look different. We're going to have a real pattern about who's on what device when, because even the homeschooler, everybody does a lot of different things online. And so there's only a couple devices that we can share. And so we all have to kind of manage what this is going to look like for us. So yeah, we're going to have to be really patient. We're going to have to hunker down a little bit and just try to acknowledge that. What I told the boys yesterday was, I said the analogy that kind of came to me was kind of like, we almost kind of need to look at our home as like a little ark, in that we're doing as Noah did right now, which is that we're hunkering down into the ark as the flood is coming. And we don't necessarily know. They're telling us 2 months or something, 8 weeks at least, to flatten this curve and see what happens. But it could be longer. And so we just have to kind of adjust and accept that we're not just on vacation. So I told the boys, I said, you guys aren't just off. Dad's not just going to be off. Gabriel isn't just off. But we're going to need to kind of really hunker down a little bit and find a way for us to kind of work together better as a team, and to just appreciate what this new normal is going to be for the next little bit.
So that's that acknowledgement. For example, in our house is a treadmill. All of a sudden, where we have a treadmill at home that, we have a little home gym that all of a sudden you need to move,
Right.
And we need schedules.
Right.
We need to have a schedule of who does what they do. I mean, and so, yeah, so part of it is to really sit down and talk about the routine, what it was like before the changes happened.
Right.
And see how much of that can be kept. And the purpose of a routine is, especially when you're in a small space, you're colliding with each other. It's important to know, where am I supposed to be now? Mm-hmm. That's the basis of any routine. Why schools are the way. My daughter was telling me there's some kids are actually moving from room to room in their house between classes.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, just to at least have some.
Because they're used to walking,
Yeah.
So there's also a need for physical activity.
Right.
What is the way that kids need to get an hour of physical activity a day? So we're going to have to find a way for them to get that physical activity, which they need for their healthy growing.
That's right.
Again, this is all, we're figuring this out as we go along. But the important thing is, we are colliding with each other's spaces. And the question is, how can we create a new normal that incorporates guidelines? For example, it's really important for the next 21 days, if you want to put it that way, to get in the habit of washing our hands.
Right.
Whether it's every hour. In my house, the way my wife homeschools is she actually has for the younger ones, an alarm clock, like a school bell, mm-hmm. to keep track of the day. Mm-hmm. One thing I was thinking about, we need to start doing is it's time to go wash our hands. Even though we're not in the house, it's just getting that habit so that washing your hands the proper way becomes automatic. Now, more, and it's also, again, we're talking about the things that we have control over, right? Mm-hmm. And the spiritual care of our children. So what are some things, Mario, before we talk about the conversations about what's happening outside the house, what are some areas, some ideas you have for spiritual, in these conversations, this spiritual care of the family? What are some thoughts that you have to maintain within those routines? Spiritual and emotional, spiritual, emotional, psychological, all these things, kind of physical we talked about.
Well, so last night, Kristen and I, we normally have an hour of adoration, and the adoration chapel's closed, obviously, in as much as masses are done as well. And so on YouTube, we found some live stream of some adoration chapel. I don't even know where it was, but we just sat and did our normal hour of adoration, but we did it on YouTube and just kind of adored the Lord through the screen. And so we're still trying to manage some of those things. I'll say honestly, with the conversations we had with our kids, this was a couple nights ago, even our 5 and a 9-year-old was asking, like, why does God allow coronavirus to happen? Why does God allow these things? Why doesn't this stop? And we tried our best to answer some answer to that, which is just that, again, right, in God's providence, and Kristen's the one who really managed the conversation because it was at bedtime, so I can't remember everything that we said, is really just trying to trust God, that He has a plan, that He doesn't allow this suffering because He doesn't desire this suffering for us, but certainly it does allow us to reassess our priorities, things that we talked about yesterday, and that we just have to be smart and not be vigilant. And not be smart and vigilant, and not be afraid necessarily, but to trust and tell our kids that we're doing everything that we can do, and to reassure them that it's okay, that it's going to be okay.
And the thing about reassuring your kids, it's a great point. Part of our conversation. So the first thing is we have to be honest about the facts. And I think the facts, we know them. We can cover them maybe at the end of this. The facts are the facts, right? But some of the facts that we need to realize is to reassure our kids of a couple of things. And I really believe, as I was, because the reality is the numbers. If it's a family member, one death is too many. Because no way limiting it. But the reality, and it's going to grow. But the reality is that the biggest reassurance for me right now is our government is doing the best that we can to contain this, and people are taking it seriously. And the reality is that we have, this is not a time for political commentary. It's time to say that we have some of the smartest people in the country coming together to find the best way to protect us from this. And the reason we are being contained right now is not because coronavirus is running through the streets like the angel of death.
Correct.
But rather is to prevent this from becoming a problem like it is in other parts of the world. So I think it's really important for kids to realize that the reason why we're in the ark, to use your analogy, is we're in the ark before the rain starts,
right?
Or the rain's barely trickling. We're in the ark, and our hope is to be able to make this a manageable problem,
right?
But that's a whole other story about the curve, and it's very important how we do that. But it's reassuring the kids of what we have done, we as parents are doing. I tell my family, I'm a news junkie. I tell some of my friends, if it gets too much, don't worry. That for me is relaxing to read the news.
Right.
So if there's something major, we will get it to you. But along with that, but along with that is really important is for us to also be well-formed and be careful for a lot of really silly stuff being spread out. One of the things that arrived in my house was somebody who took a prophecy out of the Old Testament and somehow mentioning that there it is. It was foretold what's happening right now.
Right.
And my response, and it's the scripture's not wrong. And it's saying what? Repent. And I said, well, my question was, what does this scripture have here that is not already covered with Lent? So at a time of Lent, we're supposed to be sacrificing for others. My family, we're relatively healthy, low-risk people. But we're hunkering down as a sacrifice for others. Part of our service to others right now is sacrificing being at home. I go from here to my house, from my house to here. Limiting ourselves, our freedom, it's an act of sacrifice.
Right.
So it's a great opportunity to talk about the pillars of Lent, right? Which is almsgiving, prayer, and service, right? So I ask, once you take all of this, there's nothing really left there. And we have to remind kids that there's a lot of nuttiness out there, but we have to maintain the awareness that Christ is with us. And we can't interpret the Old Testament as if, I shouldn't be touching my face, but all of a sudden it gets
I've already touched mine a few times in the video, so
we're starting to have more and more. No, it's like sneezing. It's going to be contagious here. No, but in all honesty, but part of it is to not have rose-colored glasses. I mean, so find the positive. I point out to my kids the news about positive things. I'm constantly sending videos, of people coming together, people serving others. Right. I mean, I'm really encouraged by that. But it's not to have rose-colored glasses. I mean, suffering is a reality that we cannot sanitize in life. And so with that, specifically, they're going to have questions. Mario, tell us about how should we handle their questions?
Well, I want to honor the fact that we we don't have to stop. We're at 20 minutes. So we can decide what we want to do. I mean, I think we kind of said that we want to
wrap up this point, and then we'll talk about the more specific how-tos on the next one.
Yeah, we could do another one tomorrow just to kind of keep it. And I would say in terms of the questions.
Let's start with time. Same time, Mario, tomorrow?
I don't know. I have to, sorry.
Actually, we have a meeting tomorrow at this time, so yes.
Put it on my schedule.
Okay. Check.
What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Wednesday, right?
Yeah, you're on my schedule tomorrow at this time, so.
Oh, well, that's nice. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we're good.
By the way, we do collaboration. This is nothing clinical.
Yeah. Who's therapist? We don't know yet.
This is our collaboration time.
The final point that I'll make, and we can touch on this tomorrow, is again, just generally speaking, like you answer the kids' questions as they arise. You go as far as the child is ready to go. And so we started talking about it last night, and they asked, how many people have my 9-year-old asked, how many people have gotten this thing, and we gave him the number, but we try to put it in perspective and saying, there's over 7 billion people in the world, and so it's high. There's no doubt about it. Thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. In our community in New Orleans, it's growing. I mean, we're every day there are new cases that are emerging, which is unsettling, because I just hope people in my community are taking this thing seriously. And so, but then he asked, has anybody died from it? And I said, yeah, you can't sugarcoat it. You can't say otherwise. But you don't have to go into the gory details about it. You just have to be able to offer, some specifics and some reassurances.
If I can add some things to that, Mario, a couple of things I tell my kids is the reality is we're hunkering down. I imposed a hunkering down in a kind of lock in my family since last Thursday. Mm-hmm. I told them for 14 days, we're going to be locked down until the end of the month, and then we'll reevaluate. So the reality, part of it is, the reality, guys, is we don't know.
Right. That's it. We don't know.
We know how, but the reality you need to understand, I think is really important to tell our kids, is the probability, even if we got sick, the probability of you, mom or dad, getting really sick or dying are very, very low.
Right.
We're doing this to protect people who are not healthy like us. We're doing this to protect old people.
That's right. And we're doing this to protect the system too, to make sure that we don't overload the hospitals and things if that happens.
The reality is that if 1 out of 4,000 kids die, if it's one of yours, it doesn't matter.
That's right. Exactly.
But the thing is, we don't know. We don't know. So the reality, but I think to reassure, in the questions, when the questions are asking, what are they really asking?
Yeah.
Are they asking, do they really care about that? Or is someone I know, is mom and dad going to die from this?
That's what they're really worried about. Absolutely.
Whatever horrible movie I've seen or whatever silly stuff they share with each other among kids. So part of it is listening to their hearts. What are they really asking? And with that, and guess, I like to give some basic information. I like to tell them, guys, I'm sorry, I don't know. And I joke around. There's a third time I get asked this in the last 5 minutes. And unfortunately, I still don't know any more than I knew 5 minutes ago. But I will try to get that information from you. But the reality is this.
So I think there is a good point just to acknowledge, like, if you don't know the answer, don't BS. Don't tell your kids answers that you don't know the answers to. But again, you can reassure them. And so I'll say, even last night when we were wrapping things up in our conversation, Jude, even at nighttime when we were going to bed, my 5-year-old, he said, I'm thankful for mommy and daddy for giving us a safe home, and just being able to articulate that he felt safe even in the midst of everything that was happening. Like that, to me, money in the bank. I mean, like that was the greatest compliment I received in the last 2 months of my life, year. So it's a check to know that you're doing it right. And so again, I want to go in and start wrapping up because we're at 25 minutes or so. We'll do this again tomorrow, probably at the same time at 10 a.m. We'll shoot for that. Stay tuned with us on Facebook. But we just want to be two dads here who have some experience as therapists to be able to encourage you listeners and parents to manage those conversations, to go into that space, to continue your own self-care, and to not be afraid to engage and to be really present in your kids' lives. And we know that everybody's circumstances are different. And so if there are questions that you have that we didn't address today that you would like for us to address in the future Facebook Live, please go ahead and leave a comment, ask a question for us, and we'll try our best. We know that other people's circumstances are different. My neighbors work in the hospital, they're med techs, and they have, they still have to work. And they're in a high risk situation too. And so tomorrow, I think we'll have to dive in a little bit more, Carlos, talking about like parameters, what does hunkering down look like, parameters with social engagements, parameters with friends. Those are all things that it's just a whole nother kind of level of conversation that we'll get into tomorrow. So
one takeaway, Mario, from
go
today,
ahead, please.
I love your Noah's Ark example. That's something that I'm going to take home today and talk about with my kids, because I think that it gives a real spirituality and a real blessing that we have, that we do know about this ahead of time, unlike those in China who didn't. So I think it's a real blessing, the Noah's Ark analogy. I love it.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely sing it at home.
Amen. And the last thing, if I may, I didn't wear green today, so I'm sorry. Carlos, you're rocking the green for us, the St. Patrick's Day. But I guess the nice thing about being quarantined is you don't have anybody at the office to pinch you. So there's a blessing on anything. There it is. All right, everybody. God bless everybody. And we'll be back at this tomorrow. Please leave us some questions or comments if you have any. And hope you're enjoying these. Okay? Be good. God bless.